Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the most exciting episode of Oops, I Missed Church ever to air, because not only can you catch it here Sunday, as it is right now, from 3 to 5 p.m., but you can also re-watch this week's broadcast. That's right, watch on the internet, YouTube, if everything goes well. I should maybe not say it yet, but regardless, this is the first Oops, I Missed Church being filmed outside of just my computer that I used to do when I did it live in the studio. And I've got with me a guest that I haven't introduced yet because you can't see us if you're listening. But if you watch the video, you'll see him sitting here smiling, being sweet as heck. And his name is Ston.
That's me.
Ston, how the heck are you?
I'm good, man.
Yeah?
Having a good existence right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it was a pleasure being here.
You are turning a new age in just a few hours.
Yeah, in about an hour.
When this is being recorded.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? What age, may I ask?
I'm turning 27.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm in the clear for, like, existential crisis for a little bit. 25 was a little bit much. I had, like, kind of like a quarter-century crisis.
Okay.
And then I moved to upstate New York after that.
As you do.
Now I've moved back. And I think once I turn 30, I'll really, like, ball in my room for a while, but I'm good right now. I don't know. Let's see. Like, let's have a countdown clock, seeing how it goes.
Check it out. How long were you in New York? Just like a year?
I was up for about a year and a half.
Did you just go for the heck of it, kind of?
One of my best friends, Brian Holman, we were in a band together called Psalms, SALMS, no silent P, because silent consonants are dumb, like the word dumb itself has that silent B in it, which must stand for some sort of swear word.
No wonder.
Him and his wife had been planning on moving up north somewhere for like as long as I've known him. And then just at some point, I was just kind of like, oh, well, let me know what's going on with that. Like, maybe if I'm not doing anything with my life, I'll go up there with y'all. And he was like, yeah, that'd be nice. And then, like, 6 months later, he's like, hey, like, life's really hit the fan right now, and we're just gonna move this next summer. And I was like, I guess I'm not doing anything. So just kind of went up there. Cool. I wanted to get a couple of more, like, some more time of, like, hanging out, quality time with him, making some more music with him.
Yeah.
Did that. Yeah, that's kind of why I moved up there. It was in Rochester, New York, specifically. Okay. Yeah.
And you liked it?
Oh, yeah, I loved it and hated it. Like, I really, the culture up there is, like, strangely different, I'd say. Like, just, like, people are a little bit more standoffish. I think it has something to do with, like, the cold weather in some, like, weird socioeconomic way. Not economic, but, like, sort of, like, with language itself, there's, like, this weird way that language evolves where, like, in like Mediterranean areas, like the way the Latin like evolved and whatnot, it's like a lot of all sounds. But if you go to like Scandinavia, it's like skr, 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 and that's because it's cold up there, and so you're protecting your throat. And I think that human beings kind of like culturally evolved around like acting differently with each other. Where in Texas, like we literally have our door open because it's hot as heck most of the year.
Always.
So I think we're like, come on in.
It is interesting to think about how much weather influences.
It's a thing I ended up thinking about culture, a lot while I was up there. Another interesting thing up there is if someone tells you they're going to be somewhere at like 7 o'clock or something, they typically mean it. And I'm used to being like, like I'll see you at 9:30, like, you know.
Oh, I know, yeah. I've gotten way worse at that because I think it's really nice to be punctual.
Yeah, but it's so lackadaisical down here.
Yeah.
Like, no one's in a rush for anything.
Well, man, it's interesting how that is just in different places. Like I lived in Hawaii for 4 months.
Okay, yeah.
And they do not take time seriously.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, well, just because like they'll tell you a time and you basically just expect it to be at least an hour later almost.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just how they operate almost.
Totally, yeah.
And so you kind of learn to say like, okay, be there at 8 if you really want them there at 9 or 10.
Sure. Know? Yeah. Punk time, you know.
Yeah. Which is, I kind of appreciate that like island time.
I'm very much that way personally.
Yeah.
Like.
And I like being generous to people if they're, with that type of thing. If it can get annoying if you're trying to like get something done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think there's room for grace.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. I agree completely. Honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I was late tonight.
Thank you. 5 minutes.
Yeah, not terrible, but
you're fine.
Man. Well, right on, dude. I'm so excited to be doing Oops, I Miss Church like this right now.
This is happening. Here we
And
are.
I feel so fortunate that I've met all these people that are just willing to like build a set for me like this.
I wish we could turn the camera around and just show off and destroy the illusion of what we've created here, but
We won't.
yeah.
Have you ever gotten into acting?
Not really. I was really had my heart set on joining. Like I said, like I said earlier, I was homeschooled, and I was trying to join this like theater co-op. And my mom basically just one day, like after hearing me talk about it a little bit, and like the sign-up day was coming up soon, she was just like, "Do you really want to like spend multiple hours a week just like working on this stuff and like not doing anything else with your life?" And I was like, "No." And so that was the day that I realized I had very little interest in acting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's convenient. You kind of just figured it out.
Yeah. Like I did help someone out with a short film that never got completed once, but you know, it's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you get into music?
Oh golly. You want the long version or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I guess that's
dude.
what we're doing
All we
right
got
now,
is
huh?
time,
right? So my dad grew up. He was a teenager in like the '60s, and still pretty straight-laced, really. But he like was doing a band. I think mostly covers at some point. Anyways, I only tell you that so I can tell you that he tried to teach me guitar when I was a kid, and my fingies got hurt touching the strings, and that kind of hurt. And so I remember the D chord looks like a race car, which is how he explained it to me, and I still have that in my head.
Wow.
In fact, like I still am very much a visual learner when it comes to doing music. But both my brother and my dad tried to teach me guitar at different points, and I just really didn't take to it. Then skipped forward a couple of years to me being like 14 or so. My brother had a bass just kind of laying around, and I just started picking that up and playing with it. A friend of mine, Nathan Brooks, he showed me this band, The Fall of Troy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
remember
just,
them.
Yeah, just like really fun, heavy, mathy stuff, and I
Yeah.
just never heard anything like it before in my life. And I was just like, oh man, like I'm in. Like I like music apparently. It's also like it's worth knowing. I grew up in like a very like I'm the youngest of 4 children. I'm
Nice.
the closest in age to me is 10 years older than me.
Oh wow.
And so my parents basically raised 3 children throughout the satanic panic of the 80s, like being quite evangelical themselves. And then so I had a lot of like kind of reference to that in my upbringing, which kind of included no rock and roll being around the house.
For sure. No Pokemon.
Nope, no Pokemon.
No Harry Potter.
No, definitely no Harry
Yeah.
Potter. That's the devil.
Yeah.
But so really, all the music I really heard growing up was church hymnal music.
Lots of like hymnal, not necessarily contemporary Christian.
Oh no, never.
Because that
No,
mixes
like
rock
so
and roll.
like
and
hymnal music. There was some church we went to. I really don't know which one it was because we kind of hopped around a fair amount when I was a kid. There was this like music that I have retroactively learned was part of like the Appalachian tradition of gospel music, and that I really took a liking to. And then my dad had a Beach Boys cassette, and that was the most secular music I had heard for like the first number of years of my life. And
That's
eventually,
so funny.
I know, right?
Just
Yeah.
Think of what Beach Boys
Yeah,
sound
it's
like.
early Beach Boys. My dad was like, they got into drugs. None of that after that.
Nothing after 68.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and eventually my brother started getting like some sort of like DC Talk-esque, like
heck
like
yeah.
evangelical alt rock kind of vibes
Yeah.
going, and so that was like my pool of music to draw from until my friend introduced me to like extreme music, and I was just like, I'm in, sold.
Do you remember how old you were when you like first heard Fall of Troy?
I'm gonna say I was about 14, maybe 13.
I think that's when a lot of kids for the first time hear like a metal band.
Oh yeah. That was a very my trajectory after that was kind of a little bit funny because I didn't really mess around with a whole lot of music before that, realistically, and then kind of got into that and was just started trying to find more music like that. And I didn't know what to do at the time, so like I just looked up like a tour that was happening. I was like, what are these guys? Who are they playing with? There was a band called Foxy Shazam, who
Dude.
really near and dear to my heart.
Man, I saw them one time.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And it changed my life.
Eric Nally's I've watched so many hours of live videos.
Such a showman, man.
Incredible. Yeah.
I had never seen a show like that.
All I want from my life is to watch that man eat a pack of cigarettes.
He was so nuts. I remember because they had like a horn player, right?
Yeah.
And man, they just put on such a wild show.
Like I really wish I could have seen them live.
It felt like Queen or something.
Yo, exactly.
You know,
I think especially at the point where they introduced the horn player, they were really going for that.
Yeah.
And it felt authentic at the same time, which is
and like really original.
Yeah.
Because, man, I just remember seeing them and being blown away by what a show they put on.
Oh yeah, like just true. Like that was really influential. Like at the time that I really got into Foxy Shazam, I was living in a trailer park, and I just remember like while no one else was in the house, I was just like jolting around the house, just like slamming my body against the things, the whole house shaking, and just screaming along to these lyrics of just nonsense.
Man, I need to re-listen to him. I haven't listened to him in so long.
I highly recommend it, especially like that second album is called Introducing. So good.
Man.
That's
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a Foxy Shazam vibe to you.
Thank you. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. That's slightly better compliment than the Joe Dirt one I got last week.
Yeah. What is you met a guy named Bama, right?
I was outside work, smoking a cigarette, and this homeless gentleman came up to me, and he was just like, "Sir, you got kind of a Joe Dirt look to you right now," and I mean that as a compliment. I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." He's like, "Can I bum a cigarette?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fair. You've earned it."
You gave me such a nice compliment, of course.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. And you're in a band now.
I'm in a band now. Yeah, I'm in the gestation period of a band right now.
Nice.
Yeah. It's kind of I think I was describing it to you earlier as post-country or wonky-tonk.
Wonky-tonk, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like you're creating your own genre almost.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Like, it's as with anything, it's not entirely out of left field, but it's pretty out of left field for probably what most people run into.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Like, mostly I'm kind of working on doing... The other thing that was noteworthy in my childhood was the only radio station that existed in the small town I grew up in was country. And so a lot of like old like 50s through 70s and then some 90s country like sprinkled in. And so I've been accidentally honing in my country accents and voice for as long as I can remember. Yeah. The first musical compliment I ever received when I was 6. And I told someone, I was like, "Oh, I can do that voice too," and I just kind of like sang along to like "I Got Friends in Low Places" or something like that.
Yeah.
And like my sister's friends like, "Oh, that sounds really good," and I was like,
"Wow,
what? Oh,
isn't it crazy what a little positive affirmation will do when you're
insane.
A kid, man?"
Oh yeah, like yeah.
I remember like at my church when I was a little kid, I made people laugh, or like there were a few times where I was in front of the whole like congregation, and I'd make people laugh, and the feeling was such a rush, man.
And now look at you.
Here I am,
hosting a show in front of human beings.
Yeah. Man, you out of here, Will? Good friend Will Chappell's been sitting backstage as the studio audience,
silently judging us.
Love you. See ya.
Have a nice night.
So now that he's gone,
let's really get into it then.
Oh man. So you guys you played one show. We
played kind of like this last weekend. We were kind of doing like a little shindig for my birthday, and we had about a dozen people over. And it was mostly like close friends who's like
it's like a little house show kind of.
Yeah, just like people who's like intuition I trust, and I was just like, I want you to like just tear me apart and like tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
And like true friends, they don't know how to do that, so it was mostly just compliments.
Yeah.
But
that's always nice, though.
It is nice.
Maybe you did a good job. I'm sure you did, man.
I don't know how to look at that in the eye, but thank you.
I hear you. Yeah. I'm bad at constructive criticism sometimes.
Yeah.
Or like when I'm hearing somebody show me something, I'm looking for the good.
Sure.
More than things that I can like point out as needing improvement.
That's completely fair. Like,
which
I'm the same way realistically, but like when it comes to my own art, I'm just like, tell me it's terrible. Like, how can I fix this? Yeah.
I definitely appreciate like when people will kind of get real with you and say like, no, you did this wrong, or like you could have done this better.
Totally.
And like actually give you, and there's ways to do it too, where like you can communicate it in a much more graceful way
that's true.
than just like kind of throwing it all out.
Yeah.
But that's something I
Because
could
artists,
get
we're
better
sensitive people.
for real. Yeah.
You're gonna make me cry.
Yeah, it is. There's a song that I heard recently. I guess I'm just a little too sensitive.
Yeah.
By I can't remember who it was, but it's from the 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
And I hadn't heard it before, and it was just kind of funny to hear.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you're a pretty sensitive person?
Yeah. Sometimes too much, probably, but yeah, I get by.
I think even the people that say they're not sensitive are really. I think sensitivity is a pretty human thing, you know.
But I think that there's some people that like certainly have that kind of beaten out of them in a pretty literal
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it is crazy how much like cynicism can kind of creep in and really destroy sensitivity in some ways.
I know some are like real hard-skinned people that are really loving, don't get me wrong, but like don't have the most overflowing amounts of empathy in their lives. And I can also often with those people, the more I learn about their childhood or their backstory, I'm just like, that makes sense.
A lot
That's
more sense.
fair.
Yeah. That's something so interesting is just how like it's so nuts how much the way that we're raised and the things that we go through determine who we are, you know?
Certainly, yeah.
And I just feel crazy fortunate when I think about it because I had like just such an easy childhood comparatively, you know? Like, and I know my parents love me. Like that alone, I think is such a huge...
No, like, and that's the thing that like I took for granted for probably up until I was in my late teens. Like I had no conception of how like loving my family was.
Yeah.
Like just how easygoing everything was. Like as any human being does, I have disagreements with the human beings that raised me, but like I'm more radically grateful than I am anything else to them. Yeah. And that's not a thing that everyone has the ability or even privilege of like having that like that choice to have that kind of relationship with their parents.
So you were raised like pretty Christian, yeah?
Yes, sir.
So do you go to church now?
I haven't been to church in quite a bit, honestly.
Yeah. I feel that there's a lot of folks in our age group,
I'd say so,
that like grew up in the church, and I don't know if they've necessarily like abandoned the church or the message of Jesus by any means. Yeah. But like, I think there's just been sort of I don't know, we've realized kind of how institutionalized so like
much
it
of
really
everything
is.
I mean, like how distinct is so much of Western church from like watching television, where like you go and you sit down and are entertained for 30 minutes to an hour, and then you leave, and that was the thing, the end period. Like maybe you shake some hands, like awkwardly give a hug in the middle of the section, like but. And I don't know, like I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, something I haven't thought about in a while, which was when I was like probably 19 through 23, I went to like these people's Bible study, and like that was probably the most consistent like church going experience I've had as an adult, even though they would not have considered it a church, but I was just like ecclesia gathering, whatever. Yeah.
That's like my favorite format a lot of times, man. Like house church.
Yeah, I actually grew up in a house church, which is
right
actually really probably has colored a lot of my opinions about a lot of things.
For sure.
But simultaneously, I will say at some point I had the thought of, what if this was not a Bible study but a Edgar Allan Poe study? Like, what would fundamentally change in what's happening right now? And I couldn't really pick that much of anything out. And that was really disheartening to me at the time. Like, I have my critiques, but I'm not doing anything to fix any of that, so whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing, too, is like, I almost feel like you can get the gospel message out of studying even like an author like Edgar Allan Poe,
I completely agree, honestly.
Where like, there's something just about humans like alone.
Poe, you might have to try a little bit harder.
Poe would be a little tricky, but
no, but true, I feel you completely. I feel you completely, honestly. Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, man. I think that there's such a crazy, the idea of like a divine spark being inside of each human.
Oh, sure, yeah,
like being made in the image of
God.
God.
Get all Quaker on me right quick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, like I think it's so cool that like, just all the songs that I've heard even.
Oh, sure.
That are not Christian songs.
Yeah.
That it's like, I think God is talking to me right now.
Yeah.
Like, and that a lot of times is just, if you seek, you'll find kind of what you're looking
totally.
for.
I mean, like, even, like, there's something about, like, what is that, Campbell, whatever, Joseph Campbell, like, has this idea of, like, the hero's journey. I'm going to botch this entirely, but he posited this kind of, like, general narrative for most human beings and most just narratives throughout all cultures, which is kind of like, it was referred to as hero's journey. I don't remember 3 of the 5 steps, so I'm not going to go through that, but basically positing that, like, there's this kind of, like, beginning, fall apart, journey, meet the God, and then redemption cycle to most general histories and mythologies. And that's something that, like, kind of ties into the whole, like, what's his name? J.R.R. Tolkien talking with, like, C.S. Lewis, like, the myth that's real kind of thing. And that's something I can vibe with that a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. There's, like, a universal formula almost, or like universal story.
Yeah, like, there's the, like, if God is the foundation of all matter that exists, like, then, like, surely, like, there will be, like, posits and pockets, even though, like, you know, maybe tinted by our own, like, interpretations of it, but, like, will shine through, like, even, like, if you want me to get all nerdy theological junk, like, there's the whole, like, Paul talking in the Areopagus or whatever, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure, but where he's talking about the unknown God, and he's talking to the pagans on their own terms and being like, this thing, like, from your culture that you have that has utterly unrelated to, like, the Yahwehists, like, shines through the light of God. And, like, the if you want to use, like, some Richard Rohr, like, kind of cosmic Christ language, like, like, it's shining through, there it is. And or even in, like, I've been really struck the last couple of years of my life by the concept of, for the first couple hundred years, the church didn't have a canon. Like, there wasn't a New Testament scripture that, like, was agreed upon or even used. They just kind of had what they used.
Yeah, just like it was almost more oral.
Yeah, there was oral traditions, and there were books passed around, but there wasn't, like, a here's the 66 books of the Bible that we all agree upon. Like, and so, like, or even in the teachings of Jesus himself, there's, like, those kind of understandings of being like, oh, where do you meet God? You meet God in the poor and destitute. And, like, those are the things that, like, shine through that thing the most. And I feel like maybe there's something to be said about the Protestant deification of Scripture itself that kind of, like, creates an idol, which is probably nothing new to say, but...
Well, no, but I mean, it's a good thing to mention, because I think, I mean, I know, just remembering growing up in a Christian home, like, the idea of you want to honor the Word of God and, like, really view the Bible as this, like, sacred text, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it is a thing where it can become idolatry, you know, where you sort of...
I agree completely. In fact, like, I might even go as far as saying, like, any time that you read in the New Testament about where it's saying the Word of God, they probably were thinking of, like, more of a Johannine, like, John 1, Christ is the Word of God. Yeah. And, like, viewing it through
like
that
the
lens.
Logos.
Yes, exactly. And, like, that's probably the lens when they're talking about it that they're thinking about more so than these texts that I think are really good historical tools for pointing to this, like, this Christ figure. Yeah. But, like... Yeah, I don't know. Like, sorry,
you can't necessarily just like limit it to that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's something that I heard Richard Rohr say, and I don't know if it was like Saint Francis or one of the saints that mentioned that nature is the first Bible.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like, just how much God is speaking through creation and nature alone. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's so fascinating to me, because I think we can get so quickly bound inside of our boxes of what we think it's supposed to be like, and like, I don't know, like the formulaic,
especially when like
road to salvation or whatever.
Oh yeah, totally. Like another thing that I'm really grateful to like my parents for is like just like an interest in history, which is like, if you're listening, sorry, but like maybe backfired on them a little bit because of that I've like really dug into like history on a lot of levels, like both for like political reasons and for theological reasons, and just like really having a grasp of like the particularities of like even like the evangelical movement of being like, oh, this is such a thing stuck in time, and if we compare this to like something to like even like the first 200 300 years of church history, it's so radically different. And like I feel like when you take that train of thought, what people do a lot of times, I think, is they might try and revert back to an older tradition, which I think I saw a lot of in Protestantism. A lot of people are trying to like go like hardcore Calvinists because it's like calling back to like the earliest forms of Protestantism.
Yeah.
Or you might see people, what do you call it, crossing the Tigris, like going into Catholicism. Or I think a really popular thing right now is people turning to Orthodoxy. But like I think I've landed on this really ecumenical vision of it, where I'm just like, well, like this is all the Christ movement. Like as a true Protestant might say.
Well, yeah, right.
Protestant to its logical extreme.
I like that. Well, yeah, because it's frustrating to me in a lot of ways just how many sects there are.
It's insane, and how like much
denominations.
they kind of hate each other.
Yeah, and it's just like do you guys not get that you're like you believe in the same fundamental thing, and like if you really understand the primary center and foundation of it, you could really all get along
it's
way
even
better.
Like there's even like some huge like theological problems with if I'm anywhere near right, which maybe I'm just a random heretic, it's fine, whatever. But like if I'm anywhere near right, and this is all the body of Christ, this is all like the church, the gathering, whatnot. Oops, I missed it. But then the way that these sects are treating each other is anathema to the gospel. Like, because Christ gives the world a metric to judge his followers by, which is like how you love each other. Yeah. And like that's a metric that we're completely failing. Which, if I'm anywhere near right, then I completely understand, and I'm actually quite amenable to like the critique of Christianity that's been so prevalent in our culture, which seems well deserved at this point, honestly.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think it's easy to get kind of focused and centered on that, of like pointing out all the ways that Christianity has not lived up to loving each other well, but despite all that, it's cool how much like it's still alive, and like the story of Christ is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I might even make like a vaguely bold claim that I'd be glad for someone to yell at me about why I'm wrong but one of the things that's like weirdly beautiful to me, like within our culture right now, is like there's so much like this in-calling from like people that are on the peripheral of society and like calling it to the center, which is fundamentally the sort of the sort of nihilism that Nietzsche hated Christianity for, because they're like upending like the roots of society, like, and like that's like the critique that like the left is judging the right by right now is fundamentally like a Christ critique of like the world. And like even if they don't agree or whatever, like they sure do like borrow a lot and like weirdly find themselves like in this tradition more than I think makes any sense for anyone who would cognitively think that, I guess, if that made any sense as a sprawl of
it made sense. It made sense, but I'm trying to understand it better.
Oh yeah, please, yeah.
Because
I think
say it
that,
again.
I think that fundamentally, like the fact that there's so much of a call, like a well-deserved call for like these people that have been like put on the outskirts of society, and like
the oppressed,
the hated on, like for whatever
condemned.
myriad of stupid reasons, like, and calling those people to be the thing, like it's fundamentally like the same sort of cultural upending that Jesus did, where he said like, no, like all the things that make sense as like power structure and like societal ranking
totally
doesn't make any
down.
sense. And like that's a critique that is foreign in the ancient world. Like even like the idea of personhood is specifically tied to like the Greek word persona, which is like mask, which basically just means like in a court of law, you don't have a face unless you're basically a Roman male citizen who owns land. You don't have a face.
You're just not even.
And so Jesus comes in and says, all these people have faces.
Yeah.
And like before that, in pretty much every culture, like people just don't have faces in general.
Seriously.
There's exceptions to that, but in general, like America is deeply rooted in the Western tradition, which follows from like the Greek and Roman structures, be that for good or bad. But at least in the Jesus tradition, I'm really grateful for like people being called to the center.
Totally.
Included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool. That's like my favorite thing about it all is how upside down it is compared to like the kingdoms of the world, you know, because like, in the world, it's all about like how much you can acquire and like how many people you can get to follow you or whatever and influence you can gain and things like that, where the whole gospel message is like, no, actually, how can you like serve, you know, and give of yourself rather than be so focused on like me. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Ah, this is great, dude.
Yeah.
We've been talking for about 40 minutes, I think.
Cool. Neat.
And so
that flew by.
Yeah, right. It went pretty quick. Yeah.
You want to throw in a song?
Yeah, we could take a quick break.
Yeah.
And this is so cool, guys. We've never done it filmed. So great to have you here. If you're watching,
I've also never done it filmed.
It's cool, or at all.
Yeah, at all.
It's cool because Oops, I Missed Church has been going for 3 years, and there's not been an archive of any of the episodes that have already aired. So like, there's no way to go back and hear what's already played, and so this is just so special to be able to have like something for people to go back and see and hear too. Man, thanks for being good at talking, Ston.
Oh, I'm sorry for talking your ear off.
No, dude, that's why you're here.
Yeah,
that's
okay,
what.
cool.
No, that's good. Talk it off.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, let's send it to a song real quick. I don't know which one yet, friends, but thank you so much for being here. You're listening to Oops, I Missed Church on KMZN and YouTube. Right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. As always, Oops, I Missed Church on the air and the internet. Wow, what an honor. Here once again with me, the one and only Ston.
Hi.
Ston, can I ask why you go by Ston?
It's part of my last name. My full name is Jonathan Livingston, and it's the last 4 letters of my last name. There's a period in art class at the homeschool co-op that I used to go to, where I had an inside joke with my art teacher where I would sign all of my art as John Ston because I'm an autiste. And then some kid in that started calling me John Ston outside of class, and his older brother was quite popular. So he started calling me that, and then everyone started calling me that. And golly, I hated it. And then
Really?
I started just associating with Ston because Jonathan was the most popular name the year I was born. So,
Wow.
yeah.
There are a lot of Jonathans.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I guess.
I mean,
confusing.
Yeah. It makes for a lot of nicknames, you know?
Yeah.
You were homeschooled the whole way through.
When we first moved to San Antonio, I was doing a private school for a little bit, like kind of some place called BCI. I don't even know where it's at. It's kind of near Lee High School, I guess.
Yeah.
You're not
Don't
from
know
here,
really,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah. But yeah, in general, like,
Most of the way.
yeah, like there's
Did you-
go on. No,
you-
please.
I was just going to ask if you went to college at all.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I basically homeschooled through college, honestly.
Nice.
Do you know what a CLEP test is?
Clap?
CLEP?
Clep.
Sorry, I probably
No.
misspoke. It's basically it's a test that covers the entirety of a semester's course, and if you pass the test, you get that amount of credit for it. And most schools take about 24 college credit hours of CLEP test, so you can like tear through a year, which I just generally recommend for anyone who's just looking to speed through college.
Definitely.
But there's a couple of colleges in the country that will take 90 hours of CLEP courses. And so I went through one of them, and one of those options allowed me to do my senior year entirely with online courses. So I never had to step on campus. So I have a bachelor's that I've never stepped at my alma mater for.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many years did it take?
I did it in about 3 years,
3 years?
3.5 years.
I've been thinking about going to school myself because I never went to a real college
Oh yeah.
after high school. And I love to learn, and so I think I'd enjoy it,
Yeah.
but I just don't want to spend money on it.
I think about going back to school periodically myself, probably for like theology, but
Yeah.
I just can't convince myself that like what happens after I get the degree is worth like the money and the time that goes into getting it.
Especially with today's availability of information.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's never been easier to teach yourself something.
Yeah. I mean, like I've never stopped. One of the things I'm really grateful for my homeschooling experience with, which is not everyone has a good homeschooling experience. Not everyone has a good public schooling experience.
Definitely.
So, it's all a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But my parents really, I feel, almost more so than any particular subject that they had me learn, they tried to teach me how to learn. And so, like, to my own chagrin sometimes, like, I've just never stopped, like, researching and learning things as an adult.
I think that's really important, actually, because I think you'll meet people sometimes that you can, after spending a little bit of time with them and having conversations with them, it feels like they're convinced they've learned all they could.
Yeah. And their well is a little shallow.
Well, it's exhausting a lot of times to talk to them because they just feel so convinced about it where it becomes like a pride thing. Yeah. That they're just convinced that they're always right.
Yeah. No elasticity.
Yeah, and what a treacherous way to live, I feel, because like if you can't give yourself the liberty to be wrong sometimes, like, man.
Yeah. I feel like my entire like music career is like me happily being wrong about something.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the cool thing about learning too, is like you're just basically inviting mistakes into your life in some ways, or not necessarily inviting mistakes, but having a willingness to grow through them and learn from them,
Yeah.
rather than like be defeated by them.
Yeah. A friend of mine, David Pierce, once gave me like a life philosophy about learning that I really appreciate. And it was basically, he's a very zealous man. Like anything that he's onto, he's on fire about that.
Passionate.
But I asked him about that one day. I'm just like, why are you such like kind of a jerk about things sometimes? He's just like, well, I think that if you believe something, if you're set on this thing, you should be 1,000% on it, but also 1,000% open to it being utterly wrong. And like going for, but like that doesn't mean you should like go through your life passively about whatever these things you're passionate about are. You should like really push forward in those things while also like having that burden of self-doubt within them.
Yeah, I think sometimes especially in Christian circles, doubt can be like sort of condemned, as like a sin almost. Yeah. And I get where they're coming from sometimes, where it's like, no, believe, have faith, like don't doubt, just believe. But how can you really know what you believe if you're not going to doubt it some and like question it?
Yeah, like have you engaged with it? Have you made the faith your own rather than just like an inherited thing?
Rather than just like adopting whatever is taught to you and never changing. Yeah, man, I think it's such a wild and beautiful time to be alive, just because of like, and I could say that any year, but in particular,
especially a post-internet age, it's really neat to say that. Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it, is just the way that like information now has never been more accessible. Yeah. And it's wild.
It is.
What do you love, Ston?
What do I love? Oh, that's a neat question. I like that. Golly, I'm not good at broad questions though.
That's okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be
things that I love. I love human beings. I'm really fond of them.
Me too.
Like that's a thing that drives most of my life. I like making sounds, but really whenever I think about that, really, the reasons that I like making sounds are more related to like human beings and relating with them and trying to communicate and be in communion with those people more so than it is actually about making the sounds itself.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a doorway or vessel almost. Yeah. Like an opportunity.
Like I'm really like part of the reason I'm working on this current project as like heavily as I am right now is because I really want to like tour, but I don't necessarily want to tour just because like, oh, I want to get my music out there, man. I just want like a reason where I can maybe break even while visiting my friends across the country. Yeah. Like, no, I get that. And I don't know how else to do that, frankly.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I wish there was more. That's the thing too. I think that compels a lot of musicians really is like the ability to travel. Yeah. And I love to entertain.
Yeah,
you know,
same.
I think
yeah.
it's so fun to like perform and put on a show for people.
Yeah, I'm usually entertaining. Like it's really only like the very closest people in my life that I'm like not on some level like trying to entertain at some point. Because I don't get that tired of it, frankly. Like
I think some people get like energy from it.
oh yeah, like
You know?
I do. Like yeah, no, certainly. Like I'm either utterly terrified of people, or if I can, the only thing that like breaks down that like deep intrinsic fear inside of me is like a point where I'm just like, oh, you're enjoying this conversation and you feel valuable inside of it, and then that gives me something. And so I don't know, like probably there's like some deep-seated like psychological problems I have to deal with, like, and that's why
Join
I
the club,
entertain.
dude,
but you know,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
we're living it. Yeah.
All of us. Yeah, it's kind of annoying how much is wrong with everybody.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But it's also great and
Yeah,
wonderful because
yeah.
it creates like I don't know, just a crazy relatability
Yeah.
for all of humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And sometimes it's nice, like windmills, like our wrongs clashing against each other, and like something kind of cute comes out of it, you know.
yeah. Wait, did you say windmills?
Say windmills. I'm sorry, wind chimes is what I meant
Wind
to say.
chimes.
There we go. Yeah. I had a
Okay,
brain
that makes
stupid
a
right
lot
there.
more
Yeah.
sense now,
No,
dude.
windmills. Yep.
I was like, what do you mean? Dude,
No,
they
I'm so
never
sorry.
clash with each other.
You're not.
All they do is
yeah,
rotate
I don't
on
think
their
you're
own.
doing your windmills right, is what I'm saying.
Oh, man. They just built a bunch of windmills out where this radio station that this show is broadcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's crazy the way it looks at night. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's just all these red dots out there that used to not be there. Like
Neat.
the lights, you know?
That's pretty neat.
It is actually.
you
It's
ever-
kind of a nice, like, a
Have you ever
landmark.
driven through West Texas?
Yes.
That's
Man,
something
It
else.
blows my mind how
Yeah.
many windmills there are.
Yeah.
I like that answer, what you love. I love asking people that. I think it's like a telling question a lot of times.
How many times do people throw it back on you? What do you love?
Not very often.
What do you love?
I love a
Tell
lot.
me. Tell me what you love.
Waffle House,
Okay. Yeah. Respectable.
people,
Yeah.
traveling, mountains, music.
Okay.
See, my thing, sometimes I might love too much almost,
That's fair.
you know.
Stop it.
Would you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
I'm an ambivert.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like.
Can you write with both hands?
No. Yeah, like sometimes if I can get into that spree of like really having like a really good like entertaining for people thing, I can get energy from that. But also like there's most social interaction is actually really exhausting to me.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like one-on-one interactions I can draw energy from, which I guess is the whole like introvert extrovert concept. Like where do you get your energy from?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty contextual with me. Like
Just kind of depends.
I'm honestly probably more introverted, but like I never let it show.
Yeah. I've like tried to get better at being introverted
Mm-hmm.
and like learning how to get more energy from being alone. You know?
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, I can go and go and go if I'm around people.
Yeah.
You know? And like, all you have to do is invite me,
Yeah.
basically. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, heck yeah, I'll be there, you know? Even when it's like, I shouldn't be there. It's
Mhm.
just, I want energy from the people.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, am I just being selfish by all this time I'm hanging out with everybody? Trying to get energized?
You're just the Energizer Bunny. Just keep going and going and going.
Going.
Yeah. What's not selfish, honestly?
Yeah, man, isn't that a crazy thing to think about? Like,
Yeah.
the whole idea of love even.
Yeah.
Like, to love someone is to want what's best for them. And
Yeah. Like, when does that really happen? I mean, I think that can happen. I'm just like also very cynical about like when someone's like trying to convince me that it is happening. Like, especially with myself, like I have a lot of self-doubt about like, oh, am I doing this because I actually care about this person, or because like I think that like I have some sort of power to like help out in this situation. Yeah, I don't know. Like my sister said something to me about a past relationship that had ended probably like a year later that it ended, and I was still like really caught up on it. And my sister very drunkenly leaned over to me and said, "You're not Jesus, Jonathan." And like sometimes that resonates in my head. I'm just like, yeah, like I'm not here to like necessarily save anyone or anything like that. And that's definitely something I had probably from like the ages of like 15 to 25, really.
yeah, I think that's an easy thing to get on, because especially a lot of times growing up in the church, because we're taught like we're here to love everybody and like be Jesus to people. You know?
Yeah.
And then I think it can almost create a complex where you sort of forget the fact that, I'm not Jesus.
Yeah,
like,
I can have a role to play, but like
Yeah.
it really is just like laying down a brick and hoping that there's a master plan.
Yeah, and so much of it is just kind of realizing like how much you shouldn't do, or almost like how much you should learn to let go of, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think we get so hooked on control and trying to be that like savior for a person that it can, it ends up backfiring.
Yeah, it ends up being toxic for everyone involved, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I can look back at my life and see that's happened enough times that I've,
Yeah, I bet we have similar relationships in the past where it's like, I don't know, and I've always sort of allowed that to happen sometimes, where I'll be like, oh no, like they call it like missionary dating, you know?
Sure, no, I know what you're talking
Or like
about. Yeah.
you fall in love with someone that's not a Christian or whatever, when you're trying to be the perfect Christian kid. And oh man, what a way to shoot yourself in the foot, because
it's just not good for anyone.
well, it ends up just like hurting you and the other person.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much would we all gain from slowing down and letting go of stuff sometimes?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I feel
what
that.
Do you think, What do you think you're most looking forward to in 2020?
I really want to go visit my friends up in the East Coast. Like that's a thing that I'm really looking forward to. Yeah. Like kind of like the New England kind of area, and also like the what? Go Pack. In like the Upper South, as I've started calling it, because
we're pretty far down south.
Yeah,
here.
like we're arguably not even part of. Like I don't think that one of the things that I don't even think I like truly realize is like Texas culture is so distinct from like Southern culture.
It really is.
Like I don't know, it's funny. I don't know. Everything's funny.
It's cool, man. It's like Texas is the most Mexican American state.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
Me too.
Like
man.
I missed it so much when I was up north. I was in so many like primarily white spaces up north that like here in San Antonio, like that's a really odd thing to happen if it does.
Yeah,
like you're
it's
like
rare.
in like Stone Oak or something, like if that happens,
or
you know.
Bernie, right?
Yeah, totally. Like San Antonio is a really beautiful city.
Yeah.
Like
Do you want to stay here forever?
oh wow. That's kind of like a thing I've been thinking about a lot. Or probably better to put that, trying not to think about a lot right now. Just because like I moved back maybe less than 6 months ago.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, so I've only been back for a little bit.
Fresh still, yeah.
Yeah, and like moving back was kind of like a weird thing in general. I don't think we really touched on this earlier, but like there's like a whole cacophony of reasons I moved back. Like one, I didn't want to go through another Rochester winter. Like, golly, that was
for sure, especially after growing up in Texas.
Oh yeah, man, I had no context for it. I really thought I'd like love the snow and hate the cold, but turns out Texas weather got me used to like the temperature trying to kill me all the time. Like it was just the inverse of that suddenly. But the snow is so cumbersome. Like it's not any like digging my car out of a foot of snow for like 6 months in a row. Like that was just
it can wear on you.
Ridiculous. So I didn't really want to do that again. One of my best friends was dying of cancer, so I wanted to try and come back down to be a part of that. And I just miss my friends and family. Like, and also like a weird thing that like I never would have guessed is like I miss the land. Like especially like West Texas, like it's so barren and stark, and there's just like this timid beauty to it that like
that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, like everything that is happening despite all the odds being against it. And there's something beautiful about that. And like up in New York, it was so green and lush when it wasn't covered in snow that I was just like sick of it, and I was just like
kind of miss the desert.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting the way that the geography of a place alone can, like when you grow up in it and you spend your first like decade somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it really does. There's something about like
it.
A physical surrounding.
I think it forms your entire imaginative space. Like, because like one thing that I've noticed, I don't dream a whole lot, or I'm sure I dream all the time, but I don't recall dreams usually. But one consistent dream that I'll have like 2 or 3 times a year takes place on the plot of land I grew up on, and it's like this magnificent, like 8 times as big version of it, and like everything's just so like ginormous and just like fantastical. And I kind of look back and presume that like this must be something like this must have been like my childhood understanding of the place I grew up on, and like this is just like coming back to me, like, and it's like the entire like baseline of like what my imagination about the world was like, and like the just the fantasy elements of that, like the mythological like creation of it. And like I realize that's like a space I reside in. I'd like to die in Texas.
Yeah.
Like but I'd also be fine with moving away for a while, but I want to die in Texas. Yeah.
I've never thought about where I'd like to die. I mean, I think I've come close to dying a few times, and like it's made it sort of, it's almost like romantic to me, the idea of dying, because I am so like confident in my beliefs. I feel are like secure in what I believe, that I'm like, I really don't fear death anymore. I think everybody fears death, but like I'm really ready to die whenever it needs to happen. And that kind of makes me, I don't know, I think I like the thought of like not knowing almost, and being so content with death wherever I am, you know. But I like what you mean about dying in Texas, because it's just like home, sort of. Right?
No, exactly. Like, in fact, like a friend of mine, Ryan Meatyard, he promised me I'd die in Texas. He's just like, if I find out you're on your deathbed,
like a threat almost.
you know, I know. That's what, like, I told my mom about it. She's like, I was like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But like, he's like, I'm gonna lonesome rose you, or lonesome dove you, and like drag your body back across the state to bury you here, if nothing else.
Well, that's a good friend.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I feel what you're saying though about that, because I grew up in a tiny town up in the mountains, and I like that idea of like the imaginative baseline, especially as a child, because when you're a kid, your imagination is so like,
everything's so mythical,
vivid, like, and bright, you know. And I think geography can have a big effect on that, because like I was just fascinated, like looking out my front window and seeing these mountains every day, because they were just so freaking huge, you know. And it was like just a good reminder of my smallness, I think. Yeah.
I feel that way with like the barren landscapes.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I deeply love America, man. Just because I've gotten to drive around so much of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's created
the landscapes are so unique. It's not even really anything I'd ever super thought about before. I love the geography of this place. Like it's so neat driving around, and like especially like 1 hour to the next, it can be so different.
And there's that aspect of it, of like what I love about America is the like actual landscape, you know, and then just how culturally different every single corner is.
It's neat.
Like because it's such a conglomeration of so many cultures from like every country in the world, and it's lovely.
It's neat. Like there's like, you know, like you get like the LA kind of culture, and then there's like the northeastern kind of like academic stuck up in their own butt kind of people, which I love in its own way. And then there's like the rural South, which is such an interesting place. I love it. Like a friend of mine said a thing when I was visiting him when I was driving back down from New York. He was like, raising hell and praising Dale, like Dale Earnhardt. But number three.
Oh yeah, have you ever lived in Florida? You haven't, right?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've been to Florida. Well, I was in Florida in my mother's stomach.
Nice.
At one point, but that's it.
Good. That's maybe the way that some folks would prefer to be in Florida,
I guess.
You know? I think Florida is like almost like that idea of all these different cultures and stuff. You get that in Florida. But it's like it is just such a strange place, man. I don't know.
I'm sure. I also learned, like, you know how you always see like those Florida Man articles or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I learned recently. I guess I learned this like a year or two ago now. That like the reason we see so many of those articles coming out of Florida isn't necessarily, I mean, maybe Florida is extremely crazy, but isn't necessarily because Florida is extremely crazy, because they have a different laws in the books for what the media can report on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so like in San Antonio, the same stuff could be happening, but the media doesn't have access to report on it because they're so low-level crimes.
That's interesting. Maybe Florida's just
some old. The way I learned about this initially was some old guy, like he was really rolling like a big conspiracy theory about like how it's because rich people want to live in Florida and kick everyone else out. Maybe. I don't know. Like, but I looked up the particularities of what I was just talking about, and that's a thing. So that's neat.
That's an interesting thing to think about, man. Are you really into conspiracy theories at all?
I like thinking about them. Like, I don't know how much of them like I truly believe, but I do like thinking about them.
I like thinking about them some, but I find myself getting kind of burnt out on them.
That's completely fair. You know? I think especially the last couple of years with like, I like older conspiracy theories. I feel like a lot of stuff like the QAnon stuff, like kind of like,
I don't even know what that is.
I'm not even gonna get into it if we're being frank.
Okay.
Like they basically think it's like people. I'm not getting into it. I refuse.
QAnon.
QAnon.
Does it stand for something?
Anonymous is the anon part.
I know
They think that there's someone deep within the U.S. government who's going by Q, who's sending out these reports that Trump's really gonna like drain the swamp, kind of like, and like Trump is like the true savior of like America, and like it gets real weird, and it's also based around like the whole like Pizzagate pedophilia thing, which like especially with that aspect of it, I'm just like, dude, there's like a legitimate like confirmed like pedophile rings, and like why do you need to attach these like conspiracy theories like to it when we just like have these facts that everyone just fucking ignores? Sorry, excuse my language. Yeah,
it's all good.
Beep censor here.
Yeah. I use a church organ.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Man, yeah, it's. I really haven't gotten into them.
No, I mean, don't.
That's the thing. I feel like a lot of times they can kind of. I've met some people that are really, really into conspiracy theories, and it seems to almost do something to their whole outlook on life.
No, like you have to like the flat Earth thing. Like you just have to fundamentally believe that like the entire world doesn't want you to know the truth about something.
Right.
And like that has to change the way you view your interactions with human beings.
Yeah, doesn't it make like I feel like it just makes you a less trusting person.
Yeah,
Which
I imagine
is
maybe I don't know.
Not be naive, because
no, sure, a lot of people are out to get you in the world, man. Like
you can't even trust yourself a lot of times.
I definitely can't.
Yeah, well so to say never trust anybody is like an actual okay thing to say, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm bad at it because I want to give people
sure
the benefit of
people,
the doubt, man.
Yeah.
And like I've been so fortunate where I haven't had a lot of people like be malicious towards me or have like like I haven't felt like attacked much in my life, you know? And that's maybe just the privilege train that I've been riding on all day.
Maybe, yeah.
But also, I think you kind of get what you give a lot of times. And sometimes the people that seem to complain about people being mean are
kind of mean themselves.
You know? And it's like, well, you might invite it onto yourself.
That's fair. Yeah.
Dude, you know what?
Yes, sir.
You're 27.
Oh, hey!
I
was wondering why you kept on looking at your clock.
What's
I was like,
up,
am I boring you that much? Thank you.
No.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first Oops, I Missed Church recorded for the internet and the radio is featuring a man growing.
Wow, it's happening right now.
Right now.
I just revolved around the sun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Dang.
Feel like a new person?
Yeah, it's all fresh. I feel like all my like skin particles fell off in that exact moment that beep happened, and they've all just regrown.
Amazing.
So yeah.
You look bright.
Do I have like skin as fresh as a baby or no?
Oh man. Oh gosh, Ston.
I'm glad we recorded that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being the initial guest.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This was quite enjoyable.
Yeah? We could do it again sometime.
I would like that. Yeah, I would really like that.
Dude, you and your whole band should play a song on the show sometime.
I'm down. Yeah, heck yeah.
That would be cool.
That'd be neat.
Any closing remarks for the lovely listeners of Oops, I Missed Church? Maybe some encouragement. Maybe some advice. Anything you have to offer.
Live well and love well. and maybe love yourself well sometimes if you want to.
Okay.
You should do that. You should probably do that.
And laugh often.
Live, laugh, love.
Ston, you came up with that.
No, yeah, that was me. Yeah, like the royalty checks are so fat. Like, it's so good.
All the Karens that buy your signs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Deborah's.
Of course.
Yeah.
Gosh, Ston, thank you again.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. It's all mine, I assure you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our conversation, and we're going to send it to a song. And I can't thank you enough for joining us. I feel like I should look at the camera a little more, but
Maybe, just enough.
you watch me. I won't watch you. All right. I love you. Enjoy this.